Welcome to our presentation entitled Assessing, Preventing and Reducing Risks, the Importance of a Long-Term Systematic Approach. I will show you some post-earthquake damages from Zagreb, from the Museum of Contemporary Art, then briefly present the risk management study for Croatian museums and galleries designed and implemented by the IIC-Croatian group. And at the end, I will show some good practice examples of how objects are secured for permanent exhibitions in Japanese museums, simply as an inspiration. So to bring us closer to the topic, I will share 3 post-earthquake situations from the Museum of Contemporary Art in Zagreb. The first example is from the permanent display, the Kožarić Atelier. 5 sculptures out of about 1,000 artworks exhibited in the Kožarić studio were seriously damaged because they were not fixed with museum's wax or museum's gel. The majority of works was fortunately fixed. The reason is the dynamic concept of the atelier, where the curator in charge occasionally changes the position of sculptures, but unfortunately some of them were not fixed to the shelf right after they were moved. If we want to put this into numbers, that would be 0.5% of the total objects from the studio that were damaged in the earthquake. Well, very small number, but it could have been prevented. Second example are these 2 objects in the storage. Unlike the objects that were placed in their positions on the storage metal net for paintings, the 2 artworks were temporarily placed on the floor, leaning against the net. They fell down during the earthquake and got damaged. Well, luckily nothing happened to all the other paintings that were neatly hanging in the mobile unit. The third example is the landscape by Ratko Petric at the exhibition Acquisitions. The earthquake caused the air conditioning system to collapse, and water poured onto these polyester sculptures. Fortunately, the water-resistant material hasn't suffered any severe damage, except surface dirt that could easily be removed in this case. Well, you may know one or the other similar situation from your own institution, from your own museum. And I think this is nothing to be ashamed of. On the contrary, it's something we should learn from. In order to prevent and reduce such risks, it is advisable to assess them in a structured way. We all know that it is more cost-effective and beneficial to prevent the damage than to treat it. The development of preventive strategies requires an understanding of the risk factors. Risk factors can be connected to physical forces like falling down to the floor, abrasing, cracking or collapsing, but they can be as well caused by inadequate storage, by theft, by fire, water, earthquake, or climate fluctuations. Here you can see a few already known factors according to which the assessment of risks in heritage institutions has been carried out for more than 20 years now. And there are 3 categories of risks listed below. If we take water as an example, water damage, if it is heavy flooding, will be classified as a type 1 risks, as it is usually extremely rare. Something like leaking roofs, overflowing toilets or sinks, etc. are usually sporadic type 2, and persistent leaks and penetrating humidity from the walls, for example, can be continuous type 3 risks. In the intense reflection of the damage caused by the earthquake in Zagreb, the IIC-Croatian group considered conducting a survey on risk management. As there are other areas in Croatia that are exposed to serious risks such as earthquakes, fire or floods, and because in general we didn't know how far risk management programs are implemented in Croatian museums, it was important for us to design the survey in such a way that all Croatian museums could participate. And one of the most important aims of the survey was to evaluate the current situation and to see how museums are positioned in this context of risk-based decision making. More than 180 museums were contacted and we received more than 100 responses in total. Some of them were not filled out completely. RIZIK raises a number of basic questions about planning, procedures, and facilities within an organization, some of which lead to more detailed questions about the institution's working system. We also briefly included finances and the business plan in the survey, as they dictate the implementation of optimal working conditions. All possible measures in the long term and in everyday practice simply depend on them. At the first level, the questions are divided into 4 areas. Institution includes basic information about the institution, assets and property, deal with the physical segments such as buildings and collections, and furthermore they refer to the less tangible segments such as information and intellectual resources, as these form the basis of the organization's business and identity. Finances as the necessary balance between income and expenses, and audience. Audience means people whose opinions and decisions influence the success of the museum. Here you can see 2 screenshots from the RIZIK online survey. The data obtained from the survey will be analyzed anonymously in 2021, as of this year. The results will be sent in the form of statistic data to all participating museums, and the final report will be submitted to the Ministry of Culture and Media. The results of this survey will be published in the conference proceedings as well. Now we are still in the process of completing this evaluation, so anyone who wants to know more about it can have a look there. The question we kept asking ourselves after the earthquake was how other countries deal with this danger. The colleagues in Japan are very experienced when it comes to securing objects against earthquakes. They have developed simple methods to protect the objects in the exhibitions, and I would like to share a few examples with you. And I also raised the question, a bit provocative one, whether our expectations of aesthetics are sometimes too high. We often want to present the objects completely authentic without supporting constructions because we imagine that this would interfere with the aesthetics of the objects. Well, the question is really whether this is true, because the visitors, in my experience, usually only perceives the object and generally have understanding from safety measures. This picture, this photograph on the left is just a symbolic image from the Technical Museum in Vienna, where I used to work and where we invested a considerable amount of time and effort in making special invisible display mounts. So we have 2 situations here, once the heavy vases and once this beautiful bust on the right from the National Art Center in Tokyo and Museum of Art in Osaka, Japan. When securing, we have to answer 2 main questions. Can objects fall over? That's where the ratio of height to base area is important. And can objects move or change position during vibrations? To prevent the vases from falling over, these massive supports were mounted in the background. And to prevent them from moving to the left or right, the base was additionally secured with the small clamps. The bust on the other side has a more stable angle at the back, and at the front and on the sides, the base has been enclosed with the clamps again. These beautiful glass vases have been individually secured with nylon cords. Halfway down between the objects, there is a tiny nail to which the cords are attached. The distance has been chosen so that if one of the vases falls over, the others cannot be hit. And lastly, securing of metal objects. These are held in place by custom-made metal holders, and the holders are anchored in the showcase floor and covered with a transparent tube to prevent scratches. Our sincere thanks go to Agnes Broekerhoff from the Cultural Heritage Agency of the Netherlands, who supported us so much on the beginning with literature and advices. We want to thank Jana Šubić-Prislan from Goriški Muzej in Slovenia, who shared her experience in risk management with us. And especially we want to thank all the museums that participated in the survey. If we have perhaps addressed the museums incorrectly in some of the questions, or if we have not always got to the heart of the matter, I apologize. It is really not so easy to formulate every question in such a way that it fits every museum situation. Nevertheless, we are deeply grateful for the time and for the support and interest that so many museums have shown in this study. I also want to thank all my colleagues from the IIC-Croatian group, especially Žana Matulić-Bilac, Petra Kolundžija, Tihomir Cvitanić, and Jasna Širec. And thank you all for listening.